Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to get into something I think a lot of you are really going to enjoy.
Yeah.
It's golf,
Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
um, but not just like following a tournament or something. We're talking about really breaking down the mechanics and the mental game
Yeah.
of what it takes to be a pro golfer.
We're going deep on this one. Real deep.
Super deep. So, the way we're going to do this is we're going to be basically analyzing a golfer's performance
Mhm.
in this really cool challenge. It's called a grid challenge. Have you ever heard of this?
I have, yeah. I've seen a few of these online, and they're always super interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, imagine this. You got 10 grids set up on a driving range.
Right.
Each grid is only 10 yards wide,
Tight.
super tight.
Guy.
And these grids are spread out from I think it's like 180 yards to 280.
Okay, yeah. So that's a pretty good range of distances.
Yeah, good range of distances to test every, iron and even some woods potentially. And the goal, our golfer needs to hit one ball into each grid.
It's a test of accuracy more than anything, right? Not about how far you can hit it, but how well you can control it.
Exactly. It's precision, it's adapting to different distances, all about shot shape.
And what I love about these grid challenges is you get to hear the golfer's thought process as they go. What clubs are they choosing? How are they adjusting their swing?
Right. Like, are they thinking draw or fade, all that stuff? We get to hear all of that. So should we jump right into it?
Let's tee off.
All right. So starting with the shortest distance, which is around 180 yards, and our golfer grabs confidently a 7-iron. And right away they say this is a good 7-iron for them.
That's interesting already. I mean, most amateurs would probably go for a pitching wedge or maybe even a 9-iron for 180 yards.
Exactly.
So it seems like they either hit their 7-iron really high or they're planning to take a little off this shot. What do you think?
Well, I'm leaning towards taking a little off the shot. Pros, they like to control their distances. Maybe they just feel more comfortable hitting a smooth 7-iron
Yeah.
than trying to finesse a shorter club.
Right.
Plus, remember, it's all about precision here, not distance.
Makes sense. Control is key.
Control is key. And boom, they nail the first target. First grid, done.
Nice. Okay, so what's next?
All right, so the second target is set at around 205 yards. This time, our golfer goes with a 4-iron. And they actually say that their 4-iron usually goes about 201, 202 yards. So right there, you can practically hear the gears turning in their head, right?
Yeah, they're doing some quick math, figuring out how much extra they need to put on this shot to reach that 205 mark.
And this is where we see how incredibly precise these pros have to be. Even with all that calculation, they miss the grid by, get this, 1 meter.
A meter, I mean, at that distance, a meter is nothing.
It's crazy, right? But hey, those are the margins at this level. Every little detail matters.
Yeah.
And they do end up hitting the target on the second try.
So they got it, but you could probably feel that the pressure was starting to build.
Oh, for sure. Even pros, they feel the pressure.
Yeah, especially in a challenge like this, where every shot counts. There's no room for error. It's a great reminder that golf is as much a mental game as it is physical, wouldn't you say?
100%. Okay, moving on. Target number 3 is set at 187 yards.
Okay.
And this time, the golfer decides to go with a 6-iron.
Interesting.
Interesting, right. So this is where things get a little more, nuanced.
Yeah.
They mentioned that the weather is pretty warm that day, and it might be affecting the distances, making the ball fly a bit farther than usual.
Ah, okay. Makes sense. So they're already thinking ahead, adjusting for those external factors. That's smart.
Yeah. And instead of just hitting the same 6-iron they always would, they decide to choke down on the club a little bit.
Right, which effectively reduces the loft of the club, helping them control the distance a little better. That's a great tip for any golfer out there, by the way. If you're finding your shots are going a bit long, choking down on the club can really help.
Absolutely. It's all about adapting. Right?
Sure.
And, it's not just about distance either. At this point, they actually start debating whether to hit a draw or a fade, based on the specific shot, how they're visualizing it.
Right.
For those who might not be familiar with these terms, a draw is a shot that curves gently from right to left, while a fade goes from left to right.
Yeah, and choosing the right shot shape can make a big difference, especially in a precision challenge like this.
Exactly. And here's the thing. They're doing all of this based on feel and experience. There's no mention of checking data from a launch monitor or anything like that.
Really? That's pretty interesting. It seems like they're relying more on their intuition and their knowledge of the game.
Yeah, and this actually ties into something really fascinating that we'll unpack a little bit later, which is their whole philosophy on practice. They actually say, straight up, that they find the range boring. They much prefer practicing on an actual course.
Whoa, that's a bold statement.
Right.
Most golfers see the range as a place to really hone their skills, but this pro is saying, no, get me out on the course. That's where the real learning happens.
Yeah, it's a different perspective. It's like they're saying golf isn't just about hitting the ball perfectly. It's about being able to adapt to the ever-changing challenges that you face on a real course.
I love that. It's about learning to play the game, not just perfect your swing.
Okay, so ready for another example that really highlights their shot shaping skills? We're now at a 228-yard target.
Okay, let's hear it.
So they initially consider a 7-wood, thinking that maybe a slight draw would get them the distance they need.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah. But after 2 attempts that don't quite work out, they make a pretty bold decision.
What do they do?
Instead of sticking with the 7-wood, they switch to a 3-wood.
Wow. Okay. For a lot of golfers, a 3-wood for that distance would seem like way too much club. There's a lot more that can go wrong there.
Yeah, it's definitely a risky move. But here's the thing. They pull it off. They hit this beautiful cut shot right into the target zone. I mean, we've seen their skills so far, but this really shows, their mental fortitude too, especially after those 2 initial setbacks.
Yeah, not letting those misses get to them, sticking with their game plan, trusting their abilities. That's impressive.
Absolutely, but wait, there's more. As the challenge goes on, they reveal a few other really cool insights. Like, they actually prefer to hit a fade with longer clubs, but a draw with their shorter irons.
Interesting. So they've got different strategies depending on the club they're using.
Exactly. It shows how much thought and experience goes into their game. And they even mention that they don't tweak their club lofts or, like I said, dive deep into data analysis. It's all about feel for them, understanding how the ball reacts on different parts of the course.
It's a very back-to-basics approach, isn't it? In a world where everyone's obsessed with technology and numbers, they're reminding us that those fundamental elements of the game, feel, intuition, adapting to the course, are still incredibly important.
I love that. It's like a breath of fresh air. But hey, the challenge isn't over yet. We still got to see how they handled those final few shots. And we'll get into all of that, plus their unique practice philosophy, in part 2 of our deep dive.
I'm on the edge of my seat. All right, so we're back, and our golfer is ready to tackle the final grid in this challenge.
Yeah, the pressure is definitely on now. Only 1 shot left to complete this whole thing.
They've got to be feeling it.
You can just, sense it, right? Especially when you hear what they're going for. Target number 10, between 237 and 246 yards.
Okay, so a decent amount of distance.
Yeah, and you know what club they choose?
What's that?
The 3-wood.
The 3-wood. Seriously. I mean, for most people, hitting a 3-wood that far takes so much control.
Right. It's not the club most people would automatically reach for in that situation.
Yeah, I'm surprised. But, I mean, we've seen how well they hit it earlier.
Oh, yeah, we've seen it. But still, it's got to be nerve-wracking, right?
Totally, yeah. The weight of
You
expectations.
can even hear it in their voice, more serious, laser-focused.
Oh,
Yeah, they actually say, all I have to do is hit it out of the middle now.
no.
But of course, golf is never that simple.
Never. I mean, it's easy to say that, but when you're standing over the ball with that pressure on you.
Right. And it does seem like maybe, just maybe, the pressure does get to them a little bit.
Oh.
The shot, it sounds good off the club face, but it ends up landing just a few yards short of the target.
Oh, so close.
So close. And, I think it just goes to show that even at the highest level, even for these amazing athletes, the mental game is huge. They're human. They make mistakes.
Oh, absolutely. Nobody's perfect, right?
Right. But what's really impressive is how they handle that setback.
Yeah.
There's no frustration, no blame in the wind or anything.
Yeah, that's key, isn't it? Just accepting it and moving on.
Yeah, exactly. They just, they analyze what happened and get ready for their second try.
Professionalism.
Total professionalism. They recognize that they hit the ball a little thin on that first attempt, and they make a slight adjustment for the next swing. And guess what?
Tell me they nailed it.
They absolutely nailed it. Right in the center of the grid. Challenge complete.
Boom. See? Mental toughness. That's what it's all about. Not letting one mistake derail the whole thing.
It's a perfect example of everything we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
Adaptability, staying focused under pressure. It's not just about hitting the ball far. It's about having that mental edge.
Couldn't agree more. So they aced the challenge. What else did we learn from this golfer?
Well, there's actually another really interesting part that comes out in the post-challenge interview. So they're asked about their practice routine, right?
Right.
And specifically whether they focus on hitting very specific yardages with each club.
Right, like trying to dial in every single distance.
Yeah, exactly. And their answer is actually kind of surprising.
What do they say?
They say that, yeah, they do that for their shorter irons.
Okay.
But for the longer clubs, like that 3-wood, they actually prefer to just get a feel for it on the course.
So not as much structured practice with those longer clubs.
Not as much, no.
Yeah.
They say they like to experiment more, see how the ball reacts in different situations on the course.
That's interesting. Because a lot of golfers, especially amateurs, spend hours and hours on the driving range trying to, like you said, dial in every yardage.
Totally. But this pro is saying maybe that's not always the best approach.
Yeah, like maybe overthinking things can actually hurt your game in the long run.
Right. It's like sometimes you just got to trust your instincts, get out on the course and see what happens.
It's a good point. I mean, how much do you actually think about yardages when you're out on the course? It's more about feel, right?
Yeah.
Reading the lie, judging the wind.
Exactly. And adapting to whatever the course throws at you.
So what do you think, listener? Do you obsess over yardages and data? Or are you more of a feel player?
It's a question worth asking yourself because maybe, just maybe, there's a happy medium somewhere in between.
I think there definitely is. And, this whole idea of practicing on the course versus the range, it really speaks to this golfer's adaptability, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Remember, they literally said they find the range boring.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever say that.
Me neither. But for them, it's all about embracing those real-world challenges.
The unpredictable lies, the wind, the pressure.
And it's not just about shot selection either. Remember how they adjusted their swing based on the warmer weather?
Oh, yeah, that was smart.
It shows how much attention they pay to even the smallest details.
It's like they're constantly analyzing, adapting.
Right, always thinking one step ahead. And that's a skill that goes way beyond golf, right? Being able to adjust to unexpected situations, think on your feet, make smart decisions.
Totally. It's like a life skill disguised as a golf tip.
So we've covered a lot about this golfer's game. Strategic club selection, shot shaping, adaptability, mental fortitude. But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to explore.
What's that?
The whole idea of feel versus data.
Ah, yes, the great debate.
We've heard them emphasize feel and course experience, but how does that philosophy hold up in today's golf world, where data analytics play such a huge role for so many players? That's what we'll be diving into in part 3 of this deep dive. All right, we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into the mind of a pro golfer.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey so far.
It really has. We've seen some amazing shots, some incredible displays of skill and strategy.
Mental toughness, too. Don't forget that.
Oh, absolutely. That mental game is so crucial. And, it all kind of comes back to this question of feel versus data.
Right. Like how much should a golfer rely on their instincts versus all those numbers and analytics?
Exactly. And, our golfer today, they've definitely made it clear where they stand.
They're all about that feel, that on-course experience.
Yep. Remember how they talked about not tweaking their club lofts or even using launch monitors that much?
Yeah, it's like they're almost going against the grain in today's golf world.
Right. Like so many pros are all about the data these days, tracking every single shot, analyzing every little detail.
And I get it. Data can be incredibly useful. But it makes you wonder, is there a point where we're overthinking things?
It's like you can get so caught up in the numbers that you lose touch with that natural feel for the game.
It's like learning to
Yeah.
cook by only following recipes, right? Versus someone who just throws things together and tastes as they go.
That's a perfect analogy. The recipe person might be technically proficient, but the other person, they've got that intuition, that creativity.
They understand how the flavors work together.
Exactly. And I think that's what we've seen with this golfer, right? It's not just about mechanics. It's about understanding the nuances of the course, the conditions, the way the ball reacts.
It's like they've developed a sixth sense for the game.
And that's what allows them to adapt on the fly, make those clutch decisions under pressure.
It's almost like an art form.
It really is. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important for every golfer out there to ask themselves, where do you fall on that spectrum?
Yeah, are you a data fanatic? A feel player? Or are you somewhere in between?
There's no right or wrong answer, but it's definitely something to think about.
Because maybe, just maybe, finding that right balance is the key to unlocking your full potential on the course.
And, even if you're not a golfer, I think there's a bigger lesson here.
About finding that balance in life.
Exactly. The balance between thinking and doing, between planning and adapting.
Between logic and intuition.
Because sometimes the best way to learn and grow is to just get out there and experience things for yourself.
Trust your gut, make mistakes, and learn from them.
And most importantly, have fun along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So that's it for this deep dive into golf mastery. I hope you all enjoyed it and maybe even learned a thing or two that you can apply to your own game and your life.
Thanks for joining us.